Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Massey, is there anything else on behalf of your client?
No, Your Honor. We did file our motion for discovery this morning.
All right, Mr. Ballin, anything on behalf of your client?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Perry?
No, Your Honor, but we did file a motion for bill of particulars pursuant to Rule 7C, Tennessee Rules of Criminal Procedure.
Mr. Stengel, anything on
Nothing
behalf?
further this morning, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Summers?
Nothing further on behalf of Mr. Smith this morning, Your Honor.
All right, gentlemen, we'll see you back here May 1st on that day. And we will now excuse the defendants and their defense counsel. We're asking everyone else in the courtroom to remain in the courtroom and remain seated until you're excused.
And with regard to everybody else, I would let the court know that the family is here. Just want to acknowledge that.
Yes, thank you. You all are excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That wasn't done. I would have done that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, we're going to pull away from the courtroom there, but what you were just seeing was an arraignment for 5 officers who have been charged with a number of different charges, including second-degree murder in connection with the death of Tyre Nichols. We want to bring in Rebecca Royfee. She's our CBS News legal contributor to talk a little bit about what we heard in the courtroom. Hey, Rebecca. So as I understand it, all 5 former officers now have pleaded not guilty.
Yes, that's right. So at the arraignment, all 5 officers pleaded not guilty. This was expected, and now the case proceeds.
So what will the defendants and prosecutors do from this point? What's the next step here when they're taking this into consideration?
Right. So the next steps are, there will be another status conference set. I think I actually heard that the next one set maybe for early May. In the meantime, there is discovery. So the lawyers for those officers asked for a bill of particulars, which is essentially a description of a more detailed description of the charges and also video evidence. And so that there will be an exchange of this information and further discussions, likely between the lawyers for the defendant and the prosecutors.
So we know they were charged with second-degree murder, and there are obviously different options. The prosecutors chose second-degree murder for a reason. So can you talk a little bit more about this Class A felony, what the definition of second-degree murder is, and what sort of penalty they could be facing?
Yeah, absolutely. So second-degree murder in this case, in this state, is not intentional murder, but it is a Class A felony, a very serious offense. But it charges that instead of intending to kill, they knowingly engaged in acts that were likely to cause death. And so in that particular way, caused the death of Tyre Nichols. And I think that they charged this because it is hard in a situation like this where it's so in the moment to show that there was any intention to kill. But they're clearly, given the brutality of that video, was, first of all, this was an extremely serious and egregious act. And also, it does seem like they clearly knew what they were doing to this man. And anybody in those circumstances would know that that endangers him and puts him in a situation where he might likely die.
So, Rebecca, we saw that they were all arraigned together. Does that mean that they will be tried together necessarily, or could things change as we move forward?
Right. No. They could change in many ways. First of all, one or more of those officers could change their plea to a guilty plea and accept and accept responsibility, and then face sentencing. But assuming they do all maintain their not guilty plea, they might be tried together or they might be tried separately, and that depends on a number of legal questions and how the judge rules on those questions and what how the defendants want to proceed. So there are a lot of factors before we get to the point of really knowing how this will end up and if it will end up in trial.
Rebecca, I don't think anybody's surprised by the not guilty statement that we did here in court, but can we get a sense of what the defense strategy may be when so much of what happened was caught on video?
Right. I guess, one of the things that we've seen previously in some of these cases where there's a lot of video evidence is that, sometimes there's additional video evidence. Now, the idea that video evidence would create, a strong reasonable doubt is hard to imagine. But until that develops, it's really hard to know. So, there may be a situation in which we are, we don't fully understand, videos. It's not that they're lying. These are obviously clear and accurate videos, but what happened off of the video, before the video, I assume that the lawyers will have to use something like that to argue that these officers were somehow in acting according to their official duties and were in fear of their own lives. It seems hard to imagine given what we've seen, but presumably that's the defense that's available to them.
And I'm just sort of quickly trying to look up, because I'm not sure if the official cause of death for Tyre Nichols has been revealed. Maybe it has been, and I'm just missing it. And if anyone in my ear can let me know. But I imagine that one of the challenges moving forward when it comes to prosecution is the fact that, A, there were multiple people involved, and so some may have participated more or less in the beating, but also because he died 3 days later, making a connection between what happened during that traffic stop and his death.
Right. So we saw this very issue arise during the trial of the officer in the killing of George Floyd. There was a question about cause of death, and that is going to be an element. They will have to show that these acts actually caused the death of Tyre Nichols. Now, again, we don't know, and we don't know whether Tyre Nichols suffered from any other conditions, but that is an available defense. If he did, it does seem, again, from the facts that we have, that, there was this brutal beating, and then he died. But again, that connection could be an avenue for these officers to use to create reasonable doubt.
Rebecca, historically, it's been very difficult to get a conviction for murder against law enforcement officers. Has that shifted, after George Floyd? Have things changed, or is it still a very low percentage of officers who are convicted on murder charges?
Well, I think it's a little early to say whether or not that's shifted. I think, certainly the George Floyd killing marked a turning point in so many ways, in the legal system, socially, culturally, and to see how that plays out in the courtroom, I think we need a little bit more time, but it's certainly possible, and that that we see more of this, less willingness on the part of juries to accept certain kinds of defenses from police officers, and so really remains to be seen. And also, facts in each of these cases are so different, and until we really know, until the full factual record is developed, we don't entirely know what those facts are. I mean, obviously we've seen the story and in vivid and horrifying details, but until we fully see the side that the officers present, we won't know how they are going to try to develop their case and whether or not that will be successful or not. But I do think, you're absolutely right to point out that there's been a cultural sea change, and that the way in which we as a country look at police officers and what our expectations are of police officers is shifting.
I just want to point out, because I was sort of talking about the autopsy, that the family got an independent autopsy done, which connected the beating to his death. But to me, it's surprising that we don't have an official autopsy from the county yet. I don't know how long these things take, but that's sort of the current situation.
Right. I mean, they can take a while, and they also, there's also questions about, what sort of evidence is going to be released at this particular moment.
Rebecca Royfey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we are waiting for Tyre Nichols' family to address the media. That's the expectation. We're going to bring you that live once it starts. And at about 10:30 a.m. Eastern, we will talk to the president of the Memphis branch of the NAACP about the case. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's gonna be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today. I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm gonna remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was gonna be born, he was only gonna live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift. Stream now on the free CBS News app.
You ready?
A generation of kids opens up on CBS Reports.
I just want to be like a regular kid.
Their world, their struggles, their voices.
What if I was white?
A lot of people like to call names and make you feel ashamed for being proud of who you are.
Now streaming racism.
I feel like it's just a war zone between all different races.
Will this generation continue the problem?
The kids pushed them away and didn't want them to be there because of their race.
Or be the solution?
We just need to keep raising our voices. We're all human and we don't deserve that type of treatment just because of how we look.
Are the kids all right? Racism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When weather turns extreme, CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real, you'll have time to get prepared. Feel the forecast. Weather when it matters most on CBS Mornings.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Tensions rising between a powerful country and a vital island.
The supply of this technology came grinding to a halt. The world would grind to a halt.
Absolutely. As Taiwan faces threats and aggression.
Taiwan is on the front line, and we understand our responsibility as a democracy. We cannot fall.
CBS News examines whether they can defend themselves.
Putin, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, they are manifestations of the battle between autocracy and democracy. And that is a fight that we're all engaged in.
Defending Taiwan, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
The news doesn't have to always be depressing.
What do you love about running?
It can be uplifting. That human connection that we create on the broadcast every night is incredibly important.
Stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Belarus's authoritarian leader Alexander Lukashenko said he'll only join Russia's war in Ukraine if his country is attacked. He held a press conference yesterday where he also invited President Biden to Minsk to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin for peace talks.
And this comes as world leaders meet in Germany for the Munich Security Conference, where the war in Ukraine will be high on the agenda. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke earlier, urging allies to deliver more weapons to the battlefield. Now, Secretary of State